The rain hammered against the windows of my home office in Seattle, mirroring the storm raging inside me. I'm Alistair, 46, an IT specialist, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had a perfect life. A beautiful home, a fulfilling career, and a wife, Bronwyn, whom I adored. We'd been married for 15 years, a seemingly unshakable partnership built on love, trust, and mutual respect. It started subtly. Bronwyn, a vibrant and outgoing marketing executive, began working late more frequently. Initially, I didn't think much of it. Her company was launching a new product, and I understood the demands of her job. But then came the hushed phone calls, the cryptic text messages, and the way she'd flinch if I entered the room unexpectedly. Her laughter, once so freely shared, became strained, almost forced. One evening, I decided to surprise her at work with dinner. As I approached her office building downtown, I saw her walking out hand in hand with a man. It wasn't just any man. It was Gareth, her direct supervisor, a slick, impeccably dressed individual I'd met a few times at company events. The way they looked at each other, the easy intimacy in their touch, sent a shard of ice through my heart. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. I was paralyzed, watching them get into Gareth's expensive sports car, a car Bronwyn had always admired. I drove home in a daze, replaying the scene in my mind, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, that it was all a terrible misunderstanding. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. I couldn't bring myself to confront Bronwyn directly. I was afraid of what she might say, of confirming my worst fears. I started noticing other things I'd previously overlooked. The new perfume she was wearing, the lingerie I hadn't bought her, the way she'd pull away when I tried to kiss her. One Saturday, while Bronwyn was supposedly at a team-building exercise, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I snooped. I know it was wrong, a violation of her privacy, but I was desperate for answers. I started with her phone. It was password protected, of course, but I knew her birthday. I tried it, and to my shock, it worked. The text messages were brutal. Pages and pages of explicit exchanges between Bronwyn and Gareth, filled with declarations of love, plans for secret rendezvous, and cruel jokes about me. "He's so clueless," Bronwyn had texted. "It's almost pathetic." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd built my life with, was not only betraying me but also mocking me behind my back. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe. I stumbled through the rest of the messages, each one a fresh wound. There were photos, too, intimate pictures of Bronwyn and Gareth in compromising positions, taken in places I recognized: her office, a hotel we'd stayed at on our anniversary. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream, to break things, to lash out at someone, but I was too numb, too devastated. I felt like my entire world was crumbling around me. When Bronwyn returned home late that night, I was waiting for her. I'd composed myself as best I could, but the anger and hurt were simmering just beneath the surface. "How was the team-building exercise?" I asked, my voice flat. She smiled, a bright, artificial smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It was fine," she said. "A bit boring, actually. Lots of corporate jargon." I pulled out her phone and tossed it onto the coffee table. "Is that so?" I said. "Then perhaps you can explain these." Her face paled as she recognized the phone. She picked it up, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. "Alistair, I can explain," she stammered. "Explain what, Bronwyn?" I said, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been sleeping with your boss. Explain how you've been lying to me for months. Explain how you've turned our marriage into a complete and utter joke." She started to cry, tears streaming down her face. "It just happened," she said. "It wasn't planned. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "It just happened," I repeated, incredulous. "You didn't mean for it to go this far. What, did you think you could just sleep with another man and I wouldn't notice? Did you think I was that stupid?" "No, Alistair, it's not like that," she sobbed. "I still love you, I do. This was just a mistake, a moment of weakness, that lasted for months," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "A moment of weakness that involved explicit text messages and secret rendezvous. A moment of weakness that included you making fun of me behind my back." She didn't answer. She just stood there, crying, her silence an admission of guilt. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice trembling. "I want you out of my house." "Out of my life, Alistair, please," she begged. "Don't do this. We can work through this. We can go to therapy. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix, Bronwyn," I said. "You broke it. You shattered it into a million pieces, and I'm not going to waste my time trying to put it back together." She left that night, taking a suitcase full of clothes and a shred of my heart with her. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on anything. I spent my days in a haze of grief and anger, replaying the events in my mind, trying to understand how I could have been so blind, so naive. My friends, Eamon and Cormac, were incredibly supportive. They took me out for drinks, invited me over for dinner, and listened patiently as I ranted and raved about Bronwyn and Gareth. They offered advice, but mostly they just let me vent, knowing that sometimes that's all a person needs. One evening, Eamon suggested I see a therapist. "It might help you process everything," he said. "It's not a sign of weakness, Alistair. It's a sign of strength." I was hesitant at first, but I eventually agreed. I found a therapist scene who specialized in infidelity and relationship trauma. She was kind, compassionate, and incredibly insightful. She helped me understand that Bronwyn's affair wasn't about me. It was about her own insecurities and unmet needs. "You can't blame yourself for her actions," Scene said. "You were a good husband, a loving partner. She made a choice, and that choice says more about her than it does about you." Therapy helped me deal with the emotional fallout of the affair, but it didn't erase the anger. I still felt a burning desire for revenge, a need to make Bronwyn and Gareth pay for what they'd done. One day, while scrolling through Bronwyn's social media, yes, I know I shouldn't have been doing that, I saw a post about a company gala she and Gareth were attending. It was a black tie affair, a prestigious event for the city's business elite. An idea began to form in my mind, a plan for a revenge that was both subtle and devastating. I reached out to a friend, Torin, who worked as a private investigator. It helped him out with a tech issue a few years ago, and he owed me a favor. "I need you to do some digging," I said. "I need you to find out everything you can about Gareth." Torin was discreet and efficient. Within a week, he had a dossier on Gareth that was thicker than a phone book. It turned out that Gareth wasn't the squeaky clean executive he appeared to be. He had a history of sexual harassment complaints, a gambling problem, and a trail of unpaid debts. I also learned that Gareth was married. His wife, Isolde, was a successful lawyer, known for her sharp intellect and unwavering integrity. That's when the pieces of my plan fell into place. I contacted Isolde. It was the hardest phone call I've ever made. I was essentially about to ruin her life, to shatter her world in the same way that Bronwyn had shattered mine. "I know this is going to be difficult to hear," I said, "but I have information about your husband that I think you need to know." I told her everything, laying out the evidence of Gareth's affair with Bronwyn, his history of misconduct, and his financial troubles. I sent her copies of the text messages, the photos, and Torin's report. Isolde was understandably devastated. She thanked me for telling her the truth, even though it was the last thing she wanted to hear. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know yet," she said. "But I promise you Gareth will pay for what he's done." The night of the company gala arrived. I didn't attend, of course. I stayed home, glued to my computer, waiting for news. Around midnight, I received a text message from Torin. "Check the news," it said. I opened the local news website, and there it was. A headline announcing that Gareth had been fired from his job, effective immediately, due to allegations of misconduct and financial impropriety. As I read the article, I learned that Isolde had presented the evidence I'd given her to the company's board of directors. They had no choice but to terminate Gareth's employment, but that wasn't all. Isolde had also filed for divorce, and she was reportedly pursuing legal action against Gareth for adultery and financial fraud. My revenge was complete. Gareth's career was ruined, his marriage was over, and his reputation was in tatters. I felt a sense of satisfaction, a feeling of justice served. But it was a hollow victory. It didn't bring Bronwyn back. It didn't erase the pain Shed caused, and it didn't undo the damage to my heart. In the months that followed, I focused on healing and rebuilding my life. I continued therapy, I spent time with my friends, and I threw myself into my work. I started taking guitar lessons, something I'd always wanted to do, and I rediscovered my love of hiking in the Cascade Mountains. Bronwyn reached out a few times, begging for forgiveness, promising to change. But I refused to see her, to speak to her. I knew that there was no going back, that our relationship was irrevocably broken. I learned that she and Gareth had broken up shortly after he was fired. He'd moved out of their apartment and was reportedly living with his mother. Karma, it seemed, had a way of catching up with people. One day, almost a year after the affair had come to light, I was at a coffee shop when I saw Isolde. She recognized me and she came over to say hello. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for telling me the truth. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to hear, but it was also the best thing. I am finally free." We talked for a while, sharing our stories of betrayal and healing. We discovered that we had a lot in common, a shared understanding of the pain and resilience that comes from being wronged. As I walked home that day, I realized that I was finally starting to move on. The anger and hurt were still there, but they were fading, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. Bronwyn's betrayal had been the most painful experience of my life, but it had also been a catalyst for growth. It had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to reevaluate my priorities, and to discover a strength I never knew I possessed. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm no longer afraid of it. I'm open to the possibility of love again, but I'm also content with being alone. I've learned that happiness comes from within, not from another person. And I've learned that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define you. You can rise above it, you can heal, and you can emerge stronger and wiser than before. You owe it to yourself to do just that. To anyone reading this who has experienced betrayal, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel angry, hurt, and confused. Allow yourself to grieve, but don't let it consume you. Seek help, talk to your friends, and focus on healing. You deserve happiness and you will find it again. Trust me, I know.